Welcome to English 3E. This is class 24, week 7, and we are doing the introduction to Unit 4. And these are all the ways to reach me. You can reach me at the studio while I'm talking, 1-800-465-7144. You can also call the WASA office, 1-800-667-3703. Generally, it's easier to reach me in the morning. You can also reach me 4 o'clock to about 5:30. I'm still here. You can fax your work to 1-800-463-7852. If you want to listen to a recording again, you can go onto YouTube. My channel is capital G, capital P, ERCY, space, capital W, AHSA. If you're going to hand in work, hand it in to student.work@nnecon.ca. That way it goes to the secretary. She records everything so that we can confirm that we've gotten your work. If you have a question about the work, you can also email me at jillian.percy@nnecschools.org, and I will try and get back to you as soon as I can. So we are finished Unit 3. We are on Unit 4. It's not a super long unit. I think it'll probably take us about a week and a half to get through this. It looks like this. Unit 4, it's called Attaining the Quest. I don't know what the picture is, but it's very beautiful. And we're going to kind of dive right in there. Our first assignment, number 1, is the word quest in the unit's title means a journey for adventure. The word adventure means a daring or unusual experience. If you are attaining the quest, you are, therefore, reaching or accomplishing something adventurous. Describe an adventure that you've had recently or plan to have in the near future. An example of an adventure would be spending a night alone in the bush. We wanted to have one paragraph containing at least 6 sentences. You can go over, okay? It's worth 10 marks. So you would want to have 6 really good sentences. It would be fine to have as many as 10 sentences, okay? Keep in mind, my computer decided to sign me out. I'm not sure why. Oh, I apologize. I have no control over why that just happened. Very strange. I'm logging myself back in again. It's a security measure, but I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, here we go. Almost anything could be an adventure, okay? They give kind of an extreme example in the question. I don't know how people would want to go camping all by themselves, but really anything could be an adventure. It has to involve bravery or courage, and it usually should involve doing something different, unusual, or outside your comfort zone. Because everyone is different, everyone might have different things that require bravery. It could also be an adventure that you plan to have. Like maybe you're hoping to travel to Hawaii or join the Rangers. Maybe you're thinking about running across Canada to raise money for cancer. Maybe you want to go teach overseas. Don't worry if it's actually going to happen. It's okay for you to like imagine or to dream and to write about that adventurous dream. Okay, that's just fine. Some other examples of things that might have been an adventure in your life might be facing up to a bully, getting ready to do public speaking, starting a band and performing for the first time, going to a new city or even a new country for the first time, trying a new form of travel like train, subway, cruise ship, hot air balloon, paragliding. It might involve a camping trip that had unusual activities occur, such as an accident where you needed a rescue or an unexpected encounter with a ferocious animal, got lost, extreme weather conditions, skidoo went through the ice, all sorts of things like that could qualify as an adventure. Always remember the writing process. Always, always, always start with brainstorming. A lot of people just want to dive into the writing, but mostly that doesn't produce very good work because then they're trying to write, spell, think about grammar, think about punctuation at the same time as they're thinking about all their ideas. It's just so much easier to spend some time thinking about your ideas in a free form kind of way where it doesn't really matter, and then using those ideas to create your sentences. Okay. Now, people brainstorm in a lot of different ways. We've kind of looked at the brainstorming a list of ideas. That's kind of one of the most common ones, and it's a very easy way. But not everybody likes to brainstorm that way or doesn't always find it helpful. So maybe you want to use a concept web where you can draw arrows to connect ideas. I'll show you one of those in a minute. Or maybe a story map might work for you, especially if your adventure involves a lot of movement, or sometimes artistic people might want to draw a few doodles of their ideas, which works really well with a story map. So I'm just trying to show you a few different ways to go about brainstorming. If writing a list of ideas hasn't helped you, here are some other alternatives, okay? Um, I really find taking the time to do a brain dump before I write helps me see when I need to cross an idea that it isn't as good or it isn't quite as on topic as I thought it was. Or sometimes I need to kind of spend some more time thinking of ideas because I don't really have enough to write about. That absolutely happens. And that can make writing harder than anything because you're just kind of like, oh, I can't think of anything. So here is a story map. This is kind of a one of a girl is kind of describing what's happened in her life. I don't know if it's involved some travel for sure, because you can see buildings and then the Grand Canyon and canoeing and bicycling. So it does meet that criteria. It can be a great way to convey your ideas visually. If you're the kind of person that's always got pictures going on and doing doodles, you might find a story map a great way to start brainstorming, okay? They do work best with stories that involve moving from one place to another with different events happening in each place, but that isn't the only way you can use them. For our purposes, obviously, you don't need to color them in. It's just kind of the doodling kind of helps you think about things. And then as you go to do your rough draft, you've got that to kind of refer to, oh, yeah, there's my idea. That's the order, all that kind of thing. All right. Here is a concept map. I kind of like these for brainstorming. Um, Especially if I'm doing like an informational or a summary or that kind of thing. It works for narrative stuff too, though. So in the middle, I've got my adventure. I've got some boxes where I could put some of my ideas. Here, I just kind of arbitrarily linked something. I can pull that off. But later on, maybe I've got an idea here, and then I want to make an example here. Um, so let's say I was talking about when I was 12, I got to go across Canada with my cousin to go visit my auntie and go to California, which was a huge thing. I didn't go with parents, it was just the two of us. It felt like we were so mature that we got to do this amazing trip. So flying, flying alone at 12 without parents was exciting, but scary. So then I'm going to link that. A detail might be uh, Porter was mad at me because I didn't tip the lady. I didn't know you tipped them. She just suddenly kind of like took my suitcase and was like, oh, I'll help you with this. And I was like, oh, okay, great. Because I was 12 and obviously not thinking too clearly. I was like, oh, that's awesome. How nice of her. And as I walked away, she was kind of shouting at me. It was sort of horrible and a little bit scary when you're 12. So that was definitely part of the adventure where, that part I made a mistake of. So I could kind of fill this all out with different things that happened on that adventurous trip to California. And then I might put a number, like what happened first, what was second, how do I want to end, that kind of thing. So this is another way to do concept maps. And I like this one. If I was doing this at home, I wouldn't necessarily have all the squares. I would honestly just like have written a little sentence and then draw a little circle about it, and then I would tie it here. Or in this case, I tied it here because this is an example of this bigger idea. Okay. So I kind of like this because you can do that on a computer. I could also order them. Like if I didn't want that there, okay, no problem. Maybe this is how I want to start. And I would put that up top and then this would get moved over. So this is just another way that you can brainstorm. After you've got your brainstorming done about your adventure, be sure to put your ideas in order. Think about how you want to introduce your adventure in the first sentence. You don't necessarily want to give away everything that happened, but sometimes kind of hinting at the adventure might be a good thing. You do sort of want to introduce sometimes like the setting or the big idea, right? So for me, when I was talking about flying alone at 12 without parents was exciting but scary, I'm sure your brain can immediately go, ooh, okay, flying. Where's she going to? What was scary? What happened? It's kind of a nice little hint of other things. I would definitely add some more to that. But okay, after you've got your ideas written and in order, then use all those little notes to write a rough draft, right? Like this is kind of a sentence. This is a sentence, but doesn't really explain everything. I'd probably add a few more, talking about how I was walking away. I could hear her shouting at me and I was too embarrassed to turn around and deal with her. Okay. You also, after you've written your rough draft, right? And that doesn't have to be take forever, kind of do your best, go through it, and then start to do your revisions. What I find is often people kind of start to do this stuff when you're writing your first draft, but that makes it, again, it makes it too complicated. It makes writing your draft, like stressful. Whereas if you just write your rough draft and don't really worry about it too much and then dive in and do the revisions, it's just way less stressful, I think, anyways. So first of all, organization. Does it make sense in the order you have it? Now that you've written it, does it make sense? Or do you need to kind of move things around? Number two, content and details. Have you explained what happened in an exciting way and included enough details to really bring it to life? So, for example, my Porter example, maybe I should put a quote saying some of the things she said. Maybe I could add some details about how I felt as I walked away. So, that kind of thing where sometimes we just kind of write something very simply. And then as we go through, we're like, wow, that doesn't really explain it very well. Let me add some more details. Sentence structure. Use a variety of sentence structures, which we're going to talk about more later on. Simple sentences, compound, which is two sentences joined with a conjunction, and complex, which is a dependent clause joined to an independent clause. Avoid run-on sentences and punctuation errors. Biggest thing, remember, you cannot join two sentences with a comma. It's just not acceptable in English. Word choice. Have you used vivid verbs and adjectives or some great phrases that help us be on the adventure with you? Like how things look, how they smell, how they taste, what you were feeling, all those kind of details. Then edit it for spelling, punctuation, and capitalization errors. Now, only the good copy needs to be handed in for this assignment. You do not need to hand in your rough copy to me for this one. After that, we have got assignments number 2 and number 3, and they connect to some other stuff we've got to read. So number 2 is in the article, Film Dispels Myths About Down Syndrome. A young girl named Laura has attained a quest. What is this quest she has attained? Here, they just want you to do 1 or 2 sentences, and it's worth 2 marks. The next part is using the internet as a resource. Find some information about Down syndrome. You are to print 1 page to submit, along with a brief summary of what you've discovered about Down syndrome. 1 paragraph containing at least 6 sentences, and that is 10 marks. Okay. So first, let's look at, this is the article in here. And up top, it talks about how the little girl is only 11 years old. Her name is Laura Mercer, and she's already achieved a goal. And you can see a cute little picture of her there. So the headline is Film Dispels Myths About Down Syndrome. So dispels is like it gets rid of myths. This is by John Slykius, who is the editor. And it says, Dalt Mercer is thrilled with the television movie debut of a very special person. His granddaughter, Laura, 11, has one of the starring roles in the made-for-TV movie, Jewel. Dalt, who's a retired high school teacher at Sutton District High School, is proud of Laura's performance, the first ever for her. That's because, besides being a very talented actor, Laura is also a role model for other children like her, children with Down syndrome. It just shows what these children can achieve, Dalt remarked. They can and do lead very productive, successful lives. The movie, which stars Farrah Fawcett, recounts the struggles of parents with Down syndrome children decades ago when they were labeled mongoloid and then stuck into institutions. And then there's a little kind of caption under the photo. It says, Laura Mercer as Brenda Kay the fifth child of Jewel, played by Farrah Fawcett. Brenda Kay has Down syndrome. Rejecting a doctor's advice to put her newborn in an institution, Jewel is sure the family can overcome Brenda Kay's handicaps if they just love her enough. Jewel's stubborn courage works miracles with her daughter. The film also features Cicely Tyson. It's really well done, showing how terrible these children were treated in the past. It's changed so much since then, Dalt remarked. Laura, who's the daughter of Dalt's son Gordon and his wife Kathy, was part of a small acting group in Port Perry. One day earlier last year, Kathy saw a little ad in a newspaper calling for extras to appear in an upcoming movie. She sent in Laura's photo and was called to Toronto, and instead of becoming an extra, landed one of the lead roles. Jewel was shot in Pickering last summer. I was able to be on the set one day. It was pretty exciting. They were wonderful with her, Dalt remarked. The film's producers also sent a tape of the film recently to Laura. It's a terrific movie, and she's great. Maybe there's a little grandfather's pride showing, but I think the film was very well done. Laura is now in the Professional Actors Union and could well be on her way to a successful acting career. Laura's other proud grandparents are Doug and Joan Payne of Island Grove. She's also got a sister, Brienne, who will be watching Laura's TV debut. And there is a picture of Dalt Mercer, one of Laura's proud grandparents. So after that, you would then go and answer, what quest has she attained? Okay. So we're going to look at assignment number 3. This one. Using the internet as a resource, find some information about Down syndrome. You are to print one page to submit, along with a brief summary of what you've discovered about Down syndrome. Again, it's one paragraph containing at least 6 sentences and 10 marks. Remember that you can look up several sites and cut and paste information from several sites and then paste it all into one page in Google Docs or Google Slides or whatever word processing program you use. You can also cut and paste by highlighting the information you want to save and then pasting that into a document. You can also use a photography app like Snipping Tool to take a photo of one section of the page and then paste that into a document too. Remember to be sure that the information you get meets our research criteria. It has to be from a reliable or trustworthy source, so not Wikipedia and not just a random blog. The information is relevant. In other words, it has to be useful to the assignment that we have here. It needs to be written at an appropriate level. Sometimes an article might be written too low, like it's written for children or something. Other times it might be written too high. An article might be written about, the latest research that doctors are doing, and it's full of long medical terms and statistical research information that just isn't really understandable if you're not a doctor. So obviously, if you're going to have to summarize it, you want to make sure that you understand it and that it's written just kind of for the ordinary everyday person, not written for medical people, because that can be quite challenging to read if you've ever tried that stuff. I've tackled it once or twice trying to research things, and it is insanely hard to do. Okay, so here is an example of what my research page might look like. So each little colored square represents I've clipped something from a different source and pasted it onto my one page. Now, your research page might look completely different, and it's obviously not going to have the colors. I wasn't going to write everything. It's just to show that it doesn't all have to come from one source or from the same page. Like maybe there's some great stuff on the first page of a website, and then when you flip to a different page, there's more useful stuff. So it doesn't have to all be in order like you are doing the pages in a book. Okay. It's okay to kind of hop around and skim and scan like we did before with textbooks. Okay. So for example, maybe I've got some information from a government website. Maybe there's information from a doctor's office. Maybe there's a more recent news article on Down syndrome. Maybe there's a national association dealing with Down syndrome. I can just about guarantee you there is. And they'll have some good information on Down syndrome. Hang on, I thought I had. Huh. All right, I'm gonna go on to this, but I thought I had one more little um slide showing there. Sometimes the slides get jumbled up. Um, hopefully I come across it, otherwise I'll come back to that, I guess. All right, summarizing your research. So after you've got all that gathered up, you're going to summarize your research. We've done this before. I think that was the big assignment yesterday, really, right? But there's an article in our textbook called Making It Work that discusses it as well, and it's listed as one of your readings. So we're going to talk about that. The article is called How to Write a Report, pages 67 to 69. So it says a report is a piece of writing that describes a topic that you understand well, either through research or personal knowledge. The skills are similar whether you're writing something like a book report to a police incident report or a sales report. Think about what kind of reports have you read? Now, I know that your first instinct may be to say, oh, I haven't read any reports, but I gave some possible examples of things that you might have read. So maybe you've read an article in the newspaper on the happenings at a recent event like Blueberry Fest. Maybe you had to read a work report detailing a presentation that was given to your company. Maybe you read a book review about your favorite author's new release. Maybe you read some information about a game review about the changes just made in an update of a game to decide whether to buy it or not. Maybe there was a recent Ministry of Natural Resource report on endangered species and steps they're taking to protect them that got presented at like the community hall. And what else around you might qualify as a report? Maybe you've seen the minutes or the summary of a committee meeting. Maybe you're seeing a report about what happened at your child's school for the month of September. Thinking about the reports that you've seen, did you notice anything about how it was organized? Was there a title? Did it have headings and subheadings? Was it written in paragraph or bulleted lists or both? Were there any visuals included, like diagrams, photographs, graphs, bar charts, all that kind of stuff? What kind of language do you usually use when you write a report? Language is often formal, so you don't put any slang or acronyms in. It usually tries to be objective. It tries to report fairly and accurately what they've read. If it's only a summary, it normally wouldn't have opinions or a personal commentary on it. Now, sometimes you'll get something like a game review where, say, the first part is a summary and then the end part is kind of an opinion. So it's kind of a combined type of writing. But if it's just a straight summary, they don't usually comment on it. They just present the information in a shorter, more condensed form, basically. It's usually more of a descriptive format than a narrative format. It might or it might not be chronological. It just kind of depends on what you're summarizing, I guess. Okay, so this is what it lists as steps to do it yourself. I feel like we've done this so much, you probably kind of know this, but just in case. Step one, state the topic of the report clearly. I don't know if it's state, but decide what the topic's going to be. Step two, gather your information. Some reports you'll need to do some research. Other times you'll be reporting on knowledge you already have, like how a recent community event was celebrated. Take notes about information you gather. Be sure to list the sources. Oh, see page 55 for more on how to list sources. That's in your textbook. We can talk about that a little bit later if we get a chance. Step three, organize your information by placing your notes in the order that makes the most sense to you. Your notes might be on index cards or the computer, separate pieces of paper, or on sticky notes. After it's organized in an order that makes sense to you, then go ahead and write your topic sentence and share your results in several paragraphs. Let me just do kind of a quick show you of what I mean by this. So I'm just going to use these as examples. Maybe I'll give them a color or something here. So let's say these are all my notes. Hang on. Doesn't want to let me do it. If I had 3 or 4, I might put them in order, like physically. Okay, I want that one there, that one there, that one there. I would kind of look at it, see if the flow is good. Now, this isn't my actual research. This is the summary of my research. Remember how yesterday I kind of looked at each little article that I'd clipped and tried to summarize that article before I then went back and kind of summarized everything? That's kind of what I'm talking about here. Okay, step 4, read your information again, the part where you've organized, where you've done your rough draft. Are the steps in the right order? Does the information make sense? So if you are writing about a community event that you were there at, would it make sense to somebody who wasn't at the community event? If you're writing about Down syndrome and you've just done a bunch of research, but the other person that's reading it hasn't, will it make sense to them? Did you explain enough things? Have you given information to prove or support the statements you've made? If you've quoted from someone else, be sure to list them as a source. Step 5, write your concluding paragraph by restating some of your key points in short form. Write a final sentence that states an overall conclusion. For example, due to the reasons we've reviewed, we believe that the patients are not receiving the care that they could and should be getting from our medical system. Now, I wanted to say, here it's kind of assuming that you're writing an actual report, which is usually more than one paragraph, right? We're just kind of doing sort of almost like a section of a report, not necessarily a whole report. So don't worry about, like, you're not having to write multiple paragraphs. This is just from the textbook, okay? Be sure to use the writing process steps to help you revise and edit your report before completing your final version. Okay, so this is the report that they included at the end of that article. Sorry if it's a little bit hard to read. If you've got your textbook in front of you, you can just take a look at it there. So we're going to read it and then think about, what do we notice about how they organize their information? So there's a title up top that says Droughts and Floods. In many parts of the world, droughts and floods are rare, while some areas of the world are continually plagued by the destruction that droughts and floods can cause. Millions of people live in dry grassland and partial desert areas where there is little rain, even in a good year. If there is no rain, an entire year's food supply may be lost. If there is no rain for several years, millions of people face starvation. This is what happened across the dry region of Africa in the mid-1970s and 1980s. While some parts of the world suffer from extreme dryness, other parts of the world face the continual threat of extreme rain. Tropical regions receive much more rain than temperate regions. So tropical are down near the center of the earth, the equator. Temperate are more northern. In these regions, the air is very hot, and the hot air holds a huge amount of water. The combination produces frequent thunderstorms and heavy rains. Most violent are the monsoon rains that sweep into India and Southeast Asia in May and June each year. The rivers cannot cope, resulting in flooding that destroys food supplies and housing and causes the drowning of many animals as well as humans. Extreme weather conditions, whether they involve no rain or an overabundance of rain, can cause great hardship for those who live in these regions. So just take a moment to look at that and tell me, what do you think about the organization? Okay. So if you noticed, they tell us our topic right away, right? Some areas are continually plagued by destruction from droughts and floods. And then here they repeat or restate that same concept. They don't just like write the whole sentence again. They find a new way to say the same kind of concept. And then here they give some of the details of their report on extreme drought or extreme flood. Okay. So this is the kind of thing. Now, this is obviously got quite a few paragraphs. We're not writing quite a few. We're writing one nice one. Okay. So what do I need to do for assignment 3. First of all, do an internet search on the topic of Down syndrome and then create that page for your search. Remember, you're going to give that to me. So you can find different types of information by entering different search terms. So you could just write Down syndrome and see what comes up, but you can also try different phrases because it'll bring up different things normally, not always, but a lot of times. What to do if you discover your child has Down syndrome, how to teach a child with Down syndrome, common health problems for children with Down syndrome, what is the cause of Down syndrome. You could do, jobs that adults with Down syndrome have been successful in. Second, after you've got your research page all finished, take a moment, go through, kind of highlight or underline any important information on your research page that you think is important to include in your summary about Down syndrome. Third, create a topic sentence to introduce your paragraph and try and include at least 5 to 6 sentences for your summary on the research. And remember, a closing sentence that summarizes everything we kind of learned. Fourth, revise and edit your paragraph following the procedures we talked about. Fifth, remember to hand in both your research page and your final paragraph on Down syndrome. You don't have to send in your rough copy for this one. Okay, so hang on for a second before I go on. Okay, so as I've been marking papers and stuff, I'm noticing certain kinds of mistakes coming up again. And so I wanted to kind of tackle those things again for people who are having difficulty with this. I really want to review compound and complex sentences, how they're created and how we punctuate them, okay? Because I think there's some confusion. You cannot join 2 simple sentences just using a comma. That's a punctuation error. It's considered a run-on sentence or a comma splice error. You can't do it. However, you can join 2 simple sentences using a semicolon, right? Semicolon is the little thing that looks like a comma with a dot on it, like that. You can also join 2 simple sentences using a comma after the first sentence and then a coordinating conjunction to connect the second sentence. This creates what's called a compound sentence. The coordinating conjunctions are for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. Here's an example. Okay, so here are some compound sentences, and you can see, I want to go see grandma, comma, for this Christmas is her first without grandpa. Now, if I get rid of the for, this Christmas is her first without grandpa, it still stands on its own. So that's the big thing, is the second sentence has to stand as a sentence on its own if you're going to use a coordinating conjunction. I love to go to the movies, comma, or I could also go out to dinner. I do not want to go skiing, comma, nor do I wish to go skating. John played hockey in the winter, comma, and he played baseball in the summer. I hoped to go to the concert, comma, but I haven't saved enough money. He refused to do his homework, comma, so his parents turned off the internet. So these are some examples, and you can see I can't just use the comma. I have to use a coordinating conjunction. And these are the coordinating conjunctions. There's only, is there one more? the acronym we use is fanboys. Sorry, hang on. Fanboys. So the F stands for, the A stands for and, the N stands for nor, but, or, oh, yet, or so. Yet is not one we use these days. It's one of those words that I think is sort of falling out of fashion as a coordinating conjunction. We kind of more use it at the end of a sentence, like, I haven't finished my homework yet, right? So I didn't do one for that because it's kind of tricky to think of that one. Okay, let's look here. Okay, so I've joined some sentences together. Let's take a look at them and see, have I done them correctly, or are they considered an error? I can't wait to eat dinner, comma, so I can go to the movie. Is this sentence joined together correctly? Okay, so is it correct or is it incorrect? And how do you know? All right, so take a moment. I do have a comma, but I have remembered to include my coordinating conjunction. Are both sides a sentence? Yep, here's my subject and here's my verb, I, and then I can't wait. And here's my subject again, I can go. So yeah, that is correct, right? And I know because I've used the conjunction. And both sides, both sentences are complete, right? They express a complete thought and they have a subject predicate. She loves going shopping, comma. She is excited to pick up new clothes. Is that correct or is that incorrect? This is incorrect. How do I know? I can't join two sentences with a comma. Now, I could put a semicolon there, or I could leave the comma and use a conjunction, but I can't just have it as a comma. That's not correct. So that is incorrect. Just putting it back the way it was before so I don't forget. He had waited all summer to get on the school football team. He could barely sleep the night before tryouts. Is this correct or is this incorrect? Well, they're two complete sentences and they're joined with a semicolon. That is correct. It's not one we're used to using. I don't think it's kind of fallen out of fashion, but it's 100% correct. That is grammatical. It's good. First, we moved to a small town, comma. Later, we moved back to the big city. Is this grammatically correct? Mm, I would say no. I would say it's not. It's a comma splice error. I would put the word and here. First, we moved to a small town, and later we moved back to the big city. Okay. So be really cautious. In a sentence, a comma is usually used either when you've got like a list and you're setting things off, or a date, or when you're using it before a conjunction. And then there's a bunch of stuff where we use it with introductory material. I think that's probably the part that's getting people confused. So we're going to try and do a little bit of a dive in. If we don't finish it today, we will cover it up. Finish covering it tomorrow. Okay, so complex sentences. The previous slides covered how to correctly join two sentences together to create a compound sentence. The two sentences have to be two complete sentences that could have stood on their own and just been ended with a period. If they aren't two complete, then you can't create a compound sentence out of them. Okay. Now, I kind of want to discuss how to create complex sentences. Complex sentences are a lot trickier because you're joining one complete subject. Complete means it's got a subject, a predicate, and forms a complete thought. But you're joining that to an incomplete sentence. It's got a subject and a predicate, but it doesn't form a complete thought. In order to avoid confusion when we're talking about how to create a larger sentence, we don't keep calling these little ones sentences. We generally start referring to them as clauses, just to kind of make it clear what we're doing. Okay, so here we have dependent clause versus independent clause. So any type of a clause, it has to have a noun or a pronoun that's the topic, and it has to have a predicate. Predicate is like the verb plus whatever other words tell what's happening in the sentence. Okay. Independent clause can stand on its own as a sentence. If it was just there by itself, it makes perfect sense. A dependent clause has a subordinating conjunction that creates an incomplete thought or clause that needs another clause to complete it. So here are some examples of dependent clauses. Unless he brings the money. If she says yes. Before you put in the eggs, once you finish the car, since you're already mad, you can hear that these don't quite sound right. The thought isn't finished. It's dependent on another clause to complete it, and we haven't put the clause there. If you look at these same sentences with an independent clause added in, they make a whole lot more sense. So let me show you what I mean. Unless he brings the money, I can't buy the groceries. If she says yes, I am going to marry that girl. Before you put in the eggs, make sure the pan is hot. Once you finish the car, we need to mow the lawn. Since you're already mad, I might as well tell you I'm the one who broke the vase. Now that the independent clause has been added, these sentences make more sense. The thought has been finished. When they just had the dependent clause, it was like someone just kind of stopped right in the middle of talking. Okay. So the list of coordinating clauses is short. This is just some of the subordinating conjunctions. There's more. These are some of the most common ones. And I say that, yeah, okay. So things like than, rather than, as much as. Oh, they spelled weather wrong. Whew. Whereas, after, as soon as long as, before, by the time, now that, once, since, until, when, whenever, while, who, whoever, whom, whomever, whose, if, only if, unless, provided that, even if, though, although, even though. So if you're seeing these phrases at the beginning of a sentence, it's often a dependent clause. The one thing I'd be cautious of is who maybe they're asking a question, right? But for the most part, these would mean that what the words that follow are usually a dependent clause if you don't see the independent clause that finishes the thought, right? It has to have the two clauses with those kind of sentences. So here we have complex sentences, and we've got to look at them and figure out which side has the dependent clause. Okay, so I'm going to let you take a look at the first part. Grab a quick sip of my water here. Okay, in the morning, I went for a jog. Okay. Ooh, this is a different kind, but okay. In the morning is not a complete clause. In fact, it's an adverb phrase that it could easily go over here. For the last time, I will take the field. Okay. Now, these are, all right, we'll go with it. After the game, we went out for pizza. Okay. I actually kind of want to fix these. I took this from a site, but these are not what I would call a clause. In the morning, when I wake up. Now, here's why I've fixed this. A dependent clause has to have a subject and it has to have a predicate, a verb. This one didn't. So it wasn't really a dependent clause, it was a dependent phrase. For the last time, I am sad. Last time I am sad. Last time I am able to, I will take the field. After the game, I'm going to skip that one. I can't quite figure out how to make that one there. Delete. Okay. After I left, although I left, I did not remember my roots. Okay. So I hope they haven't put them all at the beginning because that would make it very easy. Because they don't have to be. Since he was not there, I was quite upset. Okay. So I'm just going to show you really quickly what I mean. I could easily write it as this. I was quite upset since he was not there. Now, it's still, since he was not there, is still the dependent clause. And the reason is that subordinating conjunction at the front turns it into an incomplete thought. Okay. So I don't want you to think that it always happens at the front, even though for some strange reason that's what they did here. I didn't notice that until now. But it can definitely happen at the beginning, at the end. Okay. Just less obvious, but it still happens. Where we are, it is the right place to be. Even though I am tired, I will give my best effort. Although we won, I was not satisfied with my performance. My apologies, I let you guys down here. While I was waiting, I saw a meteor overhead. Okay. Before I watched the movie, I went to the snack bar. See, and we talk about proofreading. Clearly, I should have done a better job with my proofreading. My apologies. Okay, so for some insane reason, they put them all at the beginning, which makes them a lot easier to find. In your own writing, you may not. I do find that this sounds, I don't know, I find this, it sounds really a good flow this kind of way, but it works just as well the other way. Okay. So dependent clauses. Dependent clause cannot stand alone as a sentence, but it has to have the subject and it has to have the verb, right? The predicate. That's why I was having to fix some of those because they hadn't written them correctly. So there's three main kinds of dependent clause. One is an adverb clause, acting as an adverb, and it's describing a verb. Their example is, 3 can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. And that it's an adverb clause because it's answering how. How can they keep a secret? You can also use it as an adjective clause. In an adjective clause, it's acting like an adjective to describe a noun. Their example is, a person who never made a mistake never tried anything new. Now, I know we talked a lot about adjectives and how normally they come in front of a noun. This is a special kind of adjective clause that's sort of clarifying who the person is here. It can also, a dependent clause can be part of a noun clause acting as a noun in the sentence. What you are is the noun, and it will show in what you do. Okay. They chose a confusing one there by having it both ends. Those I think are really hard to use correctly. Although I suppose we use them all the time in speech. So let's take a look here let's look at adverb clauses because they're so common. In fact, some of the sequencing things we did, you would use this kind of stuff. Adverb dependent clauses can come at the beginning or at the end of a sentence. If I wanted to get wet, I would have taken a shower. So there's my dependent clause, right? It's got that if there, which makes it an incomplete thought. I've got a subject and I've got my my verb. I will go to the show myself unless you want to come too. Okay. So unless you want to come too, that can't stand on its own. It's got that subordinating conjunction there. So in this case, it's at the end and that's just fine. I am going to tell mom that you hit me as soon as she comes home. Now, again, as soon as is my subordinating conjunction. And I'm linking it with she comes home. Now that it is October, it should snow soon. Okay. Now that it is October, that phrase with that subordinating conjunction, the thought isn't quite finished. There needs to be more there. The snow should be pretty deep by the time it is Christmas. Yeah, by the time it is Christmas is our subordinating conjunction. Yeah, okay. Generally, if you put the adverb dependent clause at the front, we usually put a comma. If it comes at the end of a sentence, no comma is needed. So here we didn't really put it there. Here we did. It's not wrong, but you don't need it. Okay. It's more common when it comes at the end to just not bother to include the comma though. And with that, we are basically coming to the end. There is more to come, but I don't think we're going to have time to get to it today. Let me just grab a quick star. The stars help me later on find where I stopped because with doing two different classes, I sometimes get mixed up. Okay, so now I know where to start tomorrow. Hopefully you are successful with this new assignment. Let me know if you're having any problems, and if you need some help, give me a phone call. And good luck with your assignment, and I will talk to you tomorrow.